Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. In this video, we're going to debunk the critics of Islam in referencing chapter 86 of the Noble Quran. In this verse, as you know, in the past, many critics have manipulated and misrepresented the Quranic passage and verse regarding where man was created from. And they pretty much distort the Quranic view because they can't read properly, and they basically say they think that sperm is created in the backbone of the man or the rib, and basically we're going to show that their interpretation is wrong. And what I want you to do is, the work has already been done by muhaddith.org. You can visit the video below this video. I'll put a hyperlink, and you can see the refutation, clear refutation in that video. But what we're going to do in this video is we're going to now answer the critics of new claims they bring up upon this verse, and inshallah, God willing, I will address and refute those points. And I've already done this on Facebook, so what I'm going to do is just basically express exactly what the exchange had taken place. So let's deal with the first argument. So here is the verse where it says, man should reflect on what he was created from. He is created from spurting fluid. Then he emerges from between the backbone and the breastbone. Critics such as people like Gondal allege that Surah 86 verse 5 has a scientific error where the reproductive fluid emerges from a woman's breastbone. And what he does is he actually quotes the commentator of Jalalain to do this. Now, as muhaddith.org outlined, that the Quran does not say that the male person, like the fluid, such as the semen or the sperm, it doesn't say that it actually is created from the bone, right? It actually says that Allah creates the fluid. He creates man from that fluid. He's created man from that fluid, and that fluid actually comes forth, or as it says, it emerges from between the backbone and the breastbone. So it basically floats and it travels through the prostate glands. And I'll show you a video demonstration below this video, and I'll show you exactly how it sort of moves around. So that's all the Quran says. It doesn't say it was created from that particular bone, nor does it say that it is created from the woman's breastbone. The Quran actually says, then he emerges from between the backbone and the breastbone. So let's deal with this argument first, that they think that this is actually discussing a woman, that it discusses a woman's breastbone. Now, the verse doesn't have anything to do with a female at all. A female has got nothing to do with the sperm or the semen until it leaves the male body, and then obviously the child is produced in the female and the embryo develops and so forth. But it's got, at this point in time, it's got nothing to do with the female. When Allah speaks about the creation of man, the creation of man starts from the male, from his reproductive system, but the Islamic critics misinterpret this term. Then he emerges from between the backbone and the breastbone. They think because the Quran used the term breastbone, this actually refers to the fluid or the semen being created in the female first, and it actually comes from her breastbone. However, this is false, and I'll prove my point. So here is the refutation. The breastbone doesn't have to mean a female's breast. The dictionary definition also shows that it can refer to any person's breast, be it male or female. Here is the dictionary definition of breast. It says, a person's chest, especially when regarded as the seat of emotions, wild feelings of frustration, were rising up in the breast, synonymous heart, soul, bosom, seat, emotions. Breast, noun, literally your chest and heart considered as part of your body where you feel emotions. So, as you can see, here is the dictionary definition over here. We can go to breast and breasts. Here, breast, as you can see here, just in the middle section, a person's chest. Breast, literally your chest and heart, considered as part of your body where you feel emotions. So as you can see, it doesn't necessarily have to refer to a female, although the term is more identified with female breasts, but it can refer to men as well. In fact, there's a verse in the Noble Quran in chapter 114, Surah Al-Nisa, mankind. It says, who whispers evil into the breasts of mankind. Did you notice this? Allah uses the word breasts again in Sahih International, who whispers evil into the breasts of mankind. So notice the Quran speaks about breasts as in chests of the mankind, and that Allah doesn't make a distinction. He says mankind, referring to both the man and the female. So this is the language of the Quran, and we find this language also in the English dictionary as well. So the term breast, when it applies to a man, it's just talking about the chest area. Therefore, there is no contradiction. The fluid comes from between the rib and the backbone of a man. It has nothing to do with a woman. Now, the critics of Islam then say, oh no, but you have tafsir such as Al-Jalalain, who says that it is referring to a woman. As for referencing Al-Jalalain, I haven't actually looked at it myself, but even if it is true, that isn't an argument against the Quran, because that commentary is only subjected to that person, and commentators are not infallible and are prone to errors in judgments. That is why you will find many tafsir commentators, although they agree on certain verses and its interpretation, there are times they disagree. So it doesn't worry me at all that a commentator may have made a mistake, because obviously commentary is not part of inspiration. Unless the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said it himself, then of course, then there'd be an objection, or because the Prophet Muhammad speaks from revelation, or if the Quran itself said it. The Quran doesn't even specifically indicate or use the term female within that verse. Now we will show the second objection, and I'm debating a person who's an agnostic. His name is Hassan Radwan, and the second argument is that he claims that the Quran got it wrong when it says man is not created from semen. So he thinks that the Quran is saying that man is actually created from semen, but the Quran doesn't actually say that, right? When you actually go back to the verse, it says man was created from the fluid, meaning he didn't specifically use the term sperm or semen, right? But he says he is created from spurting fluid. Now, the actual sperm, or the semen, the semen is like 1 or 2% part of the sperm. They both intermingle with one another. So they basically coexist, and one can't live without the other. The sperm is used to move through the actual semen the fluid. So they're basically, together. So semen is one of the tools used in the creation operation of man. Then that would mean man is created from the same procedure, i.e. sperm and semen. Semen is produced in the prostate glands. So the Quran speaks of the unity of both semen and sperm in the term fluid. So that's what it basically means. The critic Hassan then says, if one is going to claim the Quran is scientifically accurate, then the language must be scientifically accurate to back that up. The verse says, look at from what man is created. I'm sorry, but man is not created from semen. This is what he says. He then goes on to say, any basic description of fertilization should refer to sperm and ovum, not semen. And my basic response back to him was, so man is not created from a sperm, semen, so what was he created from? He says, as I said, this is what Hassan says, he says, as I said, semen is the means sperm is carried in, but it is not where man comes from. It makes no sense to specify the location of the semen. My response back to him is, of course it does. They both play their parts. One cannot function without the other. Hassan then writes, lots of things play their part. The penis, the vagina, the muscles, the blood stiffens the penis and other hormone sense, but only sperm and ovum are where man comes from. And my response to him is, well, the Quran speaks in terms of all contributors. Your argument is nonsensical. It's like saying man is not created by the womb, it's created by sperm. Hello, every entity that contributed to the building of man plays a role. Therefore, man is created by all the means, sperm, semen, ovaries, nutrients, blood, etc. They all play a role. To single it down to only sperm would do injustice to all the procedures that contributed. Hassan then writes back and says, singling it down to semen makes even less sense. And my response to him was, I never did. They both play a role, which is what I believe. I didn't single it down to neither. Hassan then replies back and says, the Quran specifies semen, and according to the video you posted, which is the Muhaddith video, that place semen comes from, as I said, any basic description of fertilization should specify sperm and ovum. Again, as I said, if you're going to claim the Quran is scientifically accurate, you need to accurate your language to back it up. My response to him is, no, the Quran does not just specify semen. It uses the term fluid. The sperm flows in the fluid, therefore the Quran includes the sperm along with the fluid, semen. The Quran speaks in general terms, so the place the video mentions semen, fluid comes from prostate glands, then combines carrying sperm from testicles across to the female, thus they all work in unity. Hassan then writes back and says, sorry, but speaking in general terms is not being scientifically accurate, and it does specify the place between the backbone and the ribs, which is where the semen comes from, not the sperm. Nor does the Quran mention the ovum, a vital part of the fertilization. He then says, I'm sorry, but this verse is not scientifically accurate description of where man comes from. My response to him is, if general terms include semen and sperm, how is that term not scientifically accurate term? They are not independent with one another. The Quran never said that the sperm comes from the ribs, i.e. created there. Therefore, you have no argument. It says fluid. And like I said, the fluid works in unity with the sperm. The fluid goes right along and along the way carries the sperm to the female. So the Quran gives a clear description from the starting point of for example, the testicles, and it moves up through the prostate glands, which sits between the backbone and the rib. And this then plays a major role in the contribution. So, these critics think that everything is done and dusted within the testicle, and that's not the case. The reproductive system goes from the testicle all the way up through the prostate glands and so forth. And the Quran just describes this whole flowing process. And this is the video here. We can show a demonstration. Let's have a look.
Sperm are produced and released by the male reproductive organs. The testes are where sperm are produced. The testes are linked to the rest of the male reproductive organs by the vas deferens, which extends over the base of the pelvic bone, or ilium, and wraps around to the ampulla, seminal vesicle, and prostate. The urethra then runs from the bladder through the penis. Sperm production in the testes takes place in coiled structures called seminiferous tubules. Along the top of each testicle is the epididymis. This is a cord-like structure where the sperm mature and are stored. The release process starts when the penis fills with blood and becomes erect. Continuing to stimulate the penis will cause an ejaculation. Mature sperm begin their journey by traveling from the epididymis to the vas deferens, which propels sperm forward with smooth muscle contractions. The sperm arrive first at the ampulla, just above the prostate gland. Here, secretions from the seminal vesicle, located next to the ampulla, are added. Next, the seminal fluid is propelled forward through the ejaculatory ducts toward the urethra. As it passes the prostate gland, a milky fluid is added to make semen. Finally, the semen is ejaculated from the penis through the urethra.
As you can see clearly, see how it starts from the testicles and it goes right around. So Allah gives a perfect description to say man is created from fluid, and he then comes gushing forth, through that whole reproductive area that sits between the backbone, which is at the back, and then the rib at the front, and that sits all in between that. Of course, not exactly symmetrical, but it's just like saying my head is between my two shoulders. It may not be exactly symmetrical, but it's still between. So basically, it's between, and the fluid actually travels right around. And basically, man is created from fluid, as Allah says, and that fluid could be the sperm. And then that fluid is gushed through, meaning it passes through, it travels through, and then it goes on to the female. That's exactly what the Quran describes. It doesn't say that, that basic fluid is semen where man was created from. No, man was created from the fluid, and the fluid then, man is created from obviously sperm, and that man is now put through, say, obviously he's not in a man form yet, but he's put through the male reproductive system as obviously a sperm. This is where the origins of men come from, and it goes around the prostate glands then to then proceed on to the female to then start the procedure. So the Quran doesn't say man emerges from the backbone or man is created from that reproductive glands area. No, it talks about man is created from the fluid, and the fluid then travels through that prostate gland area. And that's what the actual video shows. So in essence, man is created from the fluid sperm, and this sperm has emerged through the travel procedure of passing through the prostate gland. And you may say, well, why are you referring to the sperm as a fluid? Well, the sperm is made up of semen as well. They both work together. So in the general term, sperm is part of the semen. So therefore, they are both. That's why Allah calls it a fluid, since they are basically floating together. This, in fact, if anything, is a scientific miracle. How did the Quran know about a fluid coming from the upper region of the testicles, more upwards towards the belly? This in itself proves the Quran is divine. So, see, the critics attack the Quran, yet in doing so expose a miracle that was not known to the Prophet at the time. This, the sperm and semen work in combination, thus man is created from both procedures, meaning that both procedures had an impact on the creation of man. The Quran doesn't have to mention the ovum, because the critic says, oh, well, how come the Quran doesn't mention the ovum? Nor does it have to mention the penis and the vagina, the two mechanisms to start the procedure. It's not a medical journal, for God's sake. It's a book of revelation that is supposed to give you a glimpse of the events. If a book of science gives you half the information on a book of human anatomy, would you consider that book unscientific, would you? And Hassan Radwan didn't really want to reply to that. He said, I'm afraid we'll have to agree to disagree, and then he took off. But I didn't leave him there. I chased him in a personal message, and let's continue it there. So let's make a conclusion, folks. The Quran says it emerges from the region, swims along that region between the ribs and the backbone, the prostate glands. Nowhere does it say created from that region, meaning the prostate glands, just in case the critics want to bring that up. And Hassan actually replies back and says, isn't that a bit like saying my dad, who's from Egypt, comes from France because he came through France? And my reply to him is, but the verse doesn't say he was created on the pathway, meaning the prostate glands. It says man has been created from the fluid, and this fluid proceeds through, traveling through the male reproductive system. This is the verse, and I'll post it here. It says, created man from fluid, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. And we can give an example of this. For example, we created man, then he emerged outside, pushed out of a vagina, for example. So this was just an example I gave. So you would never assume man was created from a vaginal canal, would you now? Similarly, the Quran says we created man from fluid. It didn't say created man from prostate glands. The prostate gland is only where the fluid proceeds from. See, I hope that is now clear. And then Hassan writes back, he says, not really. He says, the Quran says the fluid comes from between the backbone and the ribs. It doesn't say the fluid proceeds through, travels through. And I said to him, excuse me? I said, wrong, read the verse. And here is the verse, 86:7. It says, he was created from a fluid, notice here, ejected, emerging from between the backbone and the ribs. Emerging through is the same as traveling through. And then Hassan writes back and he says, it doesn't say emerging through, it says emerging, coming from between the backbone and the ribs. It's very specific. Far be it for me to improve on the Quran, but it would have been better not to say comes from between the backbone and the ribs, as it adds nothing but confusion. My reply back to him is, Hassan, so emerging from cannot be understood as emerging through, does it? That's like saying a child emerged from the vagina cannot mean emerged through the vagina, right? You see how silly you just sounded? And then Hassan writes back and says, my friend, I think we will have to agree to disagree. And he says, peace. So as you can see, the critic got debunked on rationalism, got silenced on trying to play trickery upon the verse, trying to manipulate it, And he made absolutely no sense at the end. And when he couldn't live up to a rational discussion on being exposed on his manipulation of the Quran, he basically took off. So in conclusion, folks, the Quran is absolutely accurate. It says man should reflect on what he was created. He is created from spurting fluid, and the spurting fluid is both the combination of sperm and semen. Then, notice it says he emerges from between the backbone and the breastbone. So the backbone and the breastbone is the area where the reproductive system runs around, and basically the sperm then flows, the sperm and the semen, it flows through these areas and it emerges through these areas on its way to go out of the penis and into the female. That's all it says. It doesn't say that the semen, that the fluid or the semen was the man and this man was created through the backbone, and that's where the backbone is where the sperm comes from. None of this nonsense. It's basically man is created from the fluid, and this fluid then travels through between the backbone and the breastbone. That's all it says, which is actually a scientific miracle, because the Prophet Muhammad didn't have the scientific equipment to cut open an abdomen and so forth and that area and to find out where the sperm travels from. I mean, he didn't even have a microscopic equipment and all that sort of stuff. So the Quran actually shows a miracle within the reproductive system, which proves that it is from God. And these people who are trying to manipulate and lie about the Quranic text only expose themselves when they're taken on the task.